Were you surprised it was such a big hit?
We all were. We all were.
Didn't expect it.
We thought we were making this little tight, compact European thriller that would do reasonably well and disappear into DVD land, you know?
And it became a blockbuster.
Indeed, I dare say, one of the breakout lower to mid-budget action thrillers of its day. Taken cost $25 million to make, and despite being released to a somewhat middling reception review-wise, it proved a smash hit with the public, grossing $227 million worldwide and birthed a cinematic subgenre entirely defined by Liam Neeson looking stoic and kicking ass. And yet despite this, I'm happy that Patreon supporters gave me an excuse to revisit the film, because I remember seeing this when it first came out in cinemas, and I remember having a really negative reaction to it, so much so that I remember one of my friends talking with me as we were leaving the cinema, and he was like, "Are you alright, Calvin?" Because my reaction was disproportionately vitriolic, I think. I've been wanting to get around to give it another viewing for a while now, because of the endless supply of Liam Neeson starring mid-budget action films that it spawned, and you know what, I actually quite like a fair few of those, and for a lazy Sunday post-roast viewing, they can be a lot of fun. Neeson was obviously in action films before Taken, but this is really the film that projected him into a new space of pop culture awareness. So, coming back to Taken after 14 years, I'm curious to see if I will find the fun in it that I find in the likes of Unknown and Non-Stop, or if I was correct to go all Annie Wilkes on its ass back when it first came out. Good evening, fans of inexplicable U2 references. This is Taken. The film's first 20 minutes or so are dedicated to setting up Liam Neeson's Brian Mills, a retired CIA agent and gift-wrapping enthusiast. We follow Brian as he prepares a present for his daughter's 17th, or should that be 27th birthday, because there's no way that I'm buying that this lady is 17 years old. I find these scenes really odd. It feels like the character was written as a 12-year-old, but played by someone in their mid-20s, and yet supposed to be 17. We also meet Brian's ex-wife, Lenore, here played by GoldenEye's very own Famke Janssen. Brian's relationship with his ex-wife is strained, and he feels somewhat eclipsed by Lenore's new husband, who is so rich he's a mustache and top hat away from being the Monopoly guy. Congrats! You rolled a rich stepdad. Go directly to horse, do not pass karaoke machine. We also get a flavour of Brian's professional life, as one of his friends gets him to do some freelance bodyguard work for a pop star played by Holly Valance. He successfully thwarts an assassination attempt on the star. Okay, well, anyway, it all serves to set up Brian's connections with the intelligence world, and that he can kick some ass when it comes to it. It's kind of a weird introduction to the character, particularly all the stuff with him fretting about the alignment of the wrapping paper, as well as the shop worker mentioning that he's been in the shop multiple times to check out the sodding karaoke machine he's planning to buy. On paper, this stuff is a little peculiar, or dare I say, even creepy at a push. And yet, I kinda like that he's set up as a bit of an oddball. So often in these kinds of action movies, your hero is the John McClane clone, the everyday guy who's making wisecracks, and I like that Brian is set up as being something very different to that. He's serious and stoic and kind of obsessed with the little details kind of guy, and I think that sets him up very well for what the rest of the film is going to do with him. The catalyst of which is his daughter planning to go to the most dangerous, deprived cesspit of a city that is Paris. To follow U2 on their European tour! Wait, what? U2? A 17-year-old in 2008 dreams of being a U2 groupie? I mean, I'm not saying it's beyond the realm of possibility, and I don't want to judge on appearances here, but really? This girl? In 2008, I'd have thought maybe Rihanna, Coldplay, Alicia Keys, Katy Perry, or along those lines would have made more sense, but okay, sure, she's a big U2 fan. I can't wait for the sequel where we see that she's the only person on Earth who is excited about having Songs of Innocence automatically downloaded onto her iPod. Brian is naturally skeptical about his young daughter going to a different continent, despite her going with a friend, and yeah, just as a side, but her friend is a complete liability. To Kim's credit, she is actually quite vigilant, where her mate is all but giving out her bank details to literally the first guy they meet after touchdown.
We have the whole place to ourselves. How cool is that? I didn't know that. It's Stubby.
Chill out, Kim. It's not like I told him my PIN number, which is 7583, by the way. It's hilarious that he is, like, literally the very first person that the girls talk to outside the airport, and yet he turns out to be a people trafficker, and Brian is immediately vindicated in his worries. I appreciate that the film is economical with its developments here regarding the plot and the story, but really, the first person they meet? Really? This film is like the anti-product placement. If you're American and under the age of 20, you will be abducted by people smugglers before you're even over the jet lag. And indeed, this is exactly what happens as the film's most famous and, dare I say, iconic scene plays out. Even if you haven't seen the film, I'd hazard a guess that you'll have seen some version of this, some parody of Liam Neeson's famous special skills speech, and I think there's a good reason for that. I think it's a brilliantly gripping scene. It's tense, it's scary. I think both Neeson and Maggie Grace do terrific work here, the latter with the fear and confusion that she's portraying, and Neeson with his trying to stay calm and collected despite knowing what is coming for his own daughter. He needs to be methodical here and make the most of having his daughter on the phone while all this is going down. Like I say, I think it's the strongest scene in the whole film, and I still remember seeing this at the cinema and just the silence from a packed audience. You could hear a pin drop, and then when the scene was over, just the collective intake of breath as everyone was inhaling after just not breathing for a couple of minutes. Much of the next hour of the film is Liam Neeson following leads and clues to try and find his taken daughter before a relatively arbitrary ticking clock ticks down.
What else?
Based on what they know about the way these groups operate, our analyst says you have a 96-hour window from the time she was grabbed.
To what?
To never finding her.
I love it. They make it sound like she'll turn into a pumpkin at the strike of midnight in 3 days' time. So now we're into the meat of the film. Can't wait to see how Brian puts a career of espionage and subtle cunning to use in tracking down his daughter's kidnapper.
Excuse me. Drive! The two American girls from yesterday.
Or he could just, start assaulting people in public. That won't draw unnecessary attention at all. I mean, this is absurd, yes, but definitely fun. I think that Taken features some exciting and well-presented action sequences. The film had a relatively low budget at $25 million, but it certainly makes the most of what it has. I do have a soft spot for films like this that have to think outside of the box when it comes to action. They need to be inventive, and I love how the director on some of the behind-the-scenes material talks about one of the car chases in the film and how, okay, everyone loved the Parisian car chase in The Bourne Identity, so we can't just look like we're copying that, and indeed, they take a different tact with their car chase completely. It's all about showing Brian's precision and speed rather than the crash-bang wallop, though, I mean, there is plenty of that in other sequences of the film. For the most part, Brian is investigating alone, and this is Liam Neeson's film above all else, but he has a friend come turncoat in the French police who gives him some non-assistance, which leads to an interesting interrogation scene where Brian is shooting and threatening his friend's perfectly lovely, very innocent in all this wife, and indeed, Brian's an interesting character. His morals exist in that very grey place. I have no doubt at any point that he will do whatever it takes to rescue his daughter, and it's kind of nice that he's not doing the usual espionage kind of thing, but he is just a bull in a china shop. If he sees a lead, he's just gonna go up and punch the guy. But this one-track mindedness can be a bit distracting in places. Brian comes across several other abducted women at a couple of points throughout the film, and he does very little to help them unless they can be some use to him in some way, which can feel a little cruel. I guess it fits with the streamlined approach of the rest of the film, that Brian's objectives are so streamlined. He's certainly not in this to be on some side quest to take down an entire human trafficking empire, but at the same time, dude, could you try to take down the whole human trafficking empire, please? I also feel like the film kind of fizzles out a bit by the end. Don't get me wrong, there's a cool action climax, but maybe I wanted Brian to be put through the ringer a bit more. He's a super efficient killing machine, and thanks to the kill counter on the Blu-ray, I know that he kills 33 people and injures 13 over the 90 minutes of the running time, but I'd like the final sequence to maybe provide a bit more of a challenge. Like, I don't know, obviously he gets a bit beaten up and everything, but I don't know, it just feels a little easy by the end. Overall though, I really like Neeson in this, and he's such a natural at this badass hero thing, I was slightly stunned to read that Jeff Bridges was originally thought of for the part. I mean, Neeson is just he's so perfect for it. I have a hard time imagining anyone else in this, and indeed, this film was such a hit that it spawned an entire subgenre of Liam Neeson in mid-budget action thriller films, and dare I say, I've seen an awful lot of them and rather enjoy most of them, though I'll be damned if I can remember the names of which one is which. I swear they deliberately market them in exactly the same way to confuse people like me. And the film ends on a cute note, as Brian cashes in a favour from the pop star from the beginning of the film to give his aspiring singer daughter some tips and coaching, and we don't ever get to hear his daughter utter a single note, which is a shame. I'd love to know how the next few minutes play out behind that door.
Well, come on in. Let's see what you got.
Go on, sing her that song that I like. And I will always love you. Voice of an angel. Where do we sign the recording contract? So if you're just after a straight-up fun, silly, kick-ass, streamlined 90-minute romp of an action film, you could do a lot worse than Liam Neeson's Taken. It's a bit of a standard revenge action thriller plot, but it benefits from a solid lead performance, well-choreographed fights, and even moments of, I think, unintended hilarity as Brian barges and blunders his way from scene to scene, but it moves at a brisk enough pace and features that one really iconic scene that I genuinely think has helped this film's reputation as something of a light classic of its genre over the last few years. I mean, hell, it spawned 2 direct sequels, an entire subgenre career for its leading man, so I think that says a lot. And hey, I guess the Parisian tourist industry survived as well, so everyone's a winner! Please let me know your own thoughts on this film in the comment section below. Am I putting it on too much of a pedestal, saying that it is something of a light classic? Please do let me know. And also below, you can click the subscribe button and the Mrs. Bell notification button to stay super up to date on future video uploads that I make on this channel. There's also links to my various social media pages down there as well, so feel free to check those out. And until next time, Spy fans, so long for now.